And that's the truth of it. There was never any military police. He was never tied to a toilet. He was never trying to start a fight with me. He got angry with me because I guess I joked him too much on, being, you want to fight? Stop eating that fucking Kit Kat, like kind of thing. But that was also the whiskey talking. And yeah, I mean, that was it. I appreciate Colby for the little gesture that he did by being the only person to walk in with me. But I was never really in any danger. You know what I mean? And Paul was never trying to fight me. And, we've been joking about that story ever since. And we still talk to the people on the base every now and then about it. They check in on holidays, It's hilarious.
All right, everybody, let's welcome in one of the most respected managers in the game, the man behind Suckerpunch Entertainment, Brian Butler, kind enough to join me on this Wednesday afternoon. Brian, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me on. It's always for some special reason like this, huh?
Yeah, I know. I mean, this is kind of let's be honest, kind of a silly reason you are here, but it appears you have a story to tell after a recent interview with Submission Radio and Colby Covington. And you obviously represent Paul Felder, former fighter, now a commentator for the UFC. He does a podcast with Michael Bisping called Believe You Me. And recently Paul was talking about Colby on the show, essentially saying that Colby is struggling with his fighter persona, the MAGA persona, if you will. Also saying that Colby talks a lot of trash about people, but when those fighters he talks about see him in person, he kind of shells up or is very respectful. And that deep down, Colby doesn't really want to talk trash, but he does so to stay relevant. And that's sort of the Cliff Notes paraphrase version of all of this. So yeah, before we get into the Colby thing, I just want to see, is that accurate in your eyes without going through the entire?
I think everybody has their opinion of Colby, right? And whether he's doing it because of those reasons that he's, feeling that, or he's doing it for whatever reasons. I mean, it's his thing. What I can tell you is that that's not the real Colby, and everybody, you've heard that many times. So, Paul was, Paul's an analyst, so he's giving his analyst view on things, and he said some things, and whether they're true or not, that's his analysis. But it is what it is. I mean, there was an interview prior to that where Colby said that he heard those things, and Colby was on the interview stating, oh yeah, I respect Paul. We had a great time, on we did this Air Force Base thing together. He's a great guy, and I get what he's saying. I understand what he's saying, and he's doing his analyst thing. And Colby was totally respectful about it. And then I think within like 24 hours, he did this other interview on Submission Radio, and he just went full heel, I guess, which is surprising, but not surprising, a lot of people, like I said, a lot of people think that Colby is an asshole, and it's only because of the character that he plays. But every time that I've met Colby in person, he's a completely different guy. He's absolutely respectful. He's absolutely genuine. He's absolutely takes time for fans and things like that. I think anybody that's met him in person would tell you that, aside from maybe some of the people he's gone heel on, and maybe former teammates and things like that, because I think he just doesn't know when he's gone too far, right? Like he takes things pretty far. I will say that this story about Paul is definitely taking things pretty far. Is Paul really upset by it? No, but at the same time, we don't really want anybody believing Paul was arrested and handcuffed to a toilet. I mean, something like that just never happened.
Yeah. So for those who don't know what we're talking about here, Colby was asked about this situation on Submission Radio, as we just mentioned. And Colby tells the story about Paul, and he alleges that Paul, while on that military trip, as you mentioned, got drunk and started talking crap to you. And then Colby says he had to step in and make sure that he didn't beat you up, and then started throwing stuff around his hotel room. And eventually, let me pull up the quote, tied in handcuffs by military police to a toilet in his bathroom because he was drunk on the base. Now, as you brought up, when Colby says things, it becomes news. It was written about a lot. And then you responded on Twitter, which is what caught my attention, to one of the articles written that quote, "This is so untrue. hit me up if you want the real story. So I hit you up and you're here. What is the real story? Is any of this true?
So what Colby does is he takes parts of the truth and then he embellishes it. So I will tell you there is little bits of truth here. So I'll just run you through the whole thing. And Paul will say the same thing. I think Paul did an interview where he talked about the whole thing as well. We were doing I think it's called the Joint Langley Eustis Air Force military tour. We were doing that with Misha Tate and Colby and Paul, and I think Stitch was there. Um, but it was a great tour, and we had just gotten done with a long day of hanging with the troops and doing things, and we were sitting in the hotel lobby with a few of the people that we were with all day, and we were drinking whiskey, and we were there all night. Misha came down on her laptop and started working, and we were all just sitting in the lobby and for hours, and we had some drinks, and granted, we all probably had maybe a little too much, including myself, but it was just a good time. There was nothing, nothing crazy going on at the with the situation. And then I don't know what happened, but if you know Paul, he's a self-deprecating guy. He's one of those guys that gets angry, but he's not really angry, but he is really, if you know Paul, he's funny that way. It's just him, and he can take it as much as he dishes it out. So I guess I was doing something for him because he was maybe between fights and begging for a fight, but he was, Paul used to be that guy that could have been a 170 pounder or a 155er, he was a tweener. So I would always give him shit. I'd record him eating food in slow motion, and just mess with him on that. So later in the night, I guess he got irritated by that. Nobody thought it because he just got up and left. He's like, "I'm going to bed." And he headed towards the elevator, and then we all started laughing. About joking around with Paul. And then from a distance, we hear, "I can still hear you." And then that made us all laugh even more. It's classic Paul. He gets in the elevator, he goes up, and then we all just continue on with it. Then I got a phone call from Paul saying my hotel room is broken. And I was like, what's going on? And then somebody went up there and there was water leaking out underneath his door into the hallway. So I was like, oh, great. And then he wasn't answering the door. So maybe he just, in my head, or, maybe he's passed out in the bed and water's just flowing out his room, whatever. So we go up there and banging on the door, and we all go up there because we're all like, what the hell is going on? And we're banging on the door. He doesn't answer. And then I'm trying to kind of scare him into opening the door because the water is just coming out. I'm like, Paul, I'm like, answer the door, man. I'm like, the military police are coming. If you don't answer the door, trying to get him to get up and open the door. So I just hear the door rattle. It unlocks. And then I'm like, uh-oh. I was like, I ain't trying to go in here by myself, because I don't know how drunk Paul is. But I was also half kidding. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I open the door and I see the water coming out from the bathroom, and I see Paul's shadowy figure in the window by his bed in the background. Just the silhouette is just kind of teetering, and I'm like, this is like a horror movie, So I'm like, all right, who's going in? It's like, you got to go in. You're the manager. I'm like, fuck, okay, I'll go in. So I go in and I'm like, let's see I'm like, Paul, I'm like, man, I was like, what the hell happened to your room? He's like, I slammed I shut the lid and the toilet broke. Or so he slammed the lid and the toilet broke. Who knows what happens? That's where we don't know what happened. And I'm like, listen, man, we got to get out of here and let's clean this up, get you to another room and get out of here. And he was just like, he wasn't like looking at me. He could tell he had a lot of whiskey in him, and he was kind of like looking through me or looking at my chest. And I'm like, oh my God, and in my head, I'm like, there's a slight chance if I press him too hard, he's going to swing on me. I knew probably not. But the cool thing was, and this is what I actually commend Colby on. Everybody stayed outside because they were actually scared to go in his room. And I'm, but we're all kind of playing it up. I turn around, I look over my shoulder, and Colby's right there, right behind my back and standing there, just quiet. And I'm like, and in my head, it immediately registers. I'm like, oh man, see, good on Colby. He's in here to get my back just in case, right? Yeah, and nothing happened. And then Paul was like, all right, he grumbled, he splashed out of the room, and we cleaned it up, and they moved him to another room, and that was it. And at the end, I told Colby, I was like, hey man, I was like, appreciate you doing that. He's like, of course, man, and he just that guy. And that was the end of it. The next morning, we woke up. Everybody in the hotel lobby was ready to give Paul some shit as soon as he came off the elevator. And they did. And it was a big laugh. And it was it was just fun, you know? And now they've been asking us to come back ever since. And it just hasn't lined up. And that's the truth of it. There was never any military police. He was never tied to a toilet. He was never trying to start a fight with me. He got angry with me because I guess I joked him too much on, being, you want to fight, stop eating that fucking Kit Kat, like kind of thing. But that was also the whiskey talking. And yeah, I mean, that was it. I appreciate Colby for the little gesture that he did by being the only person to walk in with me. But I was never really in any danger. You know what I mean? And Paul was never trying to fight me. And, we've been joking about that story ever since. And we still talk to the people on the base every now and then about it. They check in on holidays, It's hilarious. That's all it was, man.
So why do you think he's saying it like this?
Well, I mean, I think that is, you can see the way he said it, how some things line up, right? Like, and it's like, man, this is how a story could get twisted in the media and all of a sudden become headline news, not just with MMA, but with government politics and everything. Like, it's crazy. You just have to align like 70% of your story. And then the rest of it is like, makes everybody question it. I don't know why, I don't know why he's doing it. It could be for what Paul says. It could be just, he just wants attention, but it also, it's just his shtick. It's his act. And, he's done that. He's made a career doing that. And I don't hate on him for doing that. I just, like I said, I just feel like I wish, and this goes for several fighters and I won't name them, but I just wish the fighters would be who they genuinely are and don't change who you are when you get on camera. Because I honestly think Colby could be a very, like, if he stayed the person that a lot of people know, even Paul, he could be just loved everywhere, including the MAGA party and the Republicans and conservatives and stuff like that. He doesn't have to extricate people, I think to have the fame that he had. Maybe not. Who knows? Like I said, he's not doing bad because of it. So what can I say? He just has people that don't like him.
Yeah, and I think we all have that if we're really honest. But at the end of the day, you said that a bunch of people sent you the video. Paul was one of the people that sent you the video. You said he wasn't angry about it, but what did he say about it? Did he just laugh about it? Was he like a little annoyed by it?
At first, he was annoyed. He's like, dude, what the fuck? And then I was like, what? And he sent me his video of him talking about it. And then he sent me the video of Colby talking about it, where Colby was like, yeah, no, I love Paul. I respect what he says. He's being an ally. And then the next video he sends me is the one where Colby's like, he was tied to a toilet with handcuffs. Like, just think about that. Why would cops handcuff anybody to a toilet? And how would you do that? You would have to like make them hug it. Like what? Like none of it makes sense, right? Like there's not like a handle on the toilet that you can just, oh, you got me, What? So it doesn't make sense. So I don't know, man. It's funny. It's entertaining. This has been something that was, I didn't think it would hit my desk as much as it did. And just because it did, and just because, Paul's my guy, I got to make sure that nobody actually believes that shit.
Is it a little tough? Because, I mean, obviously the MMA media space has changed so much over the years, and you've obviously been a part of different stories, and your fighters have been part of different stories. And it is important that, I know journalism isn't as in the sport as it once was, but when you see sites writing articles about this, but not getting, at least reaching out to you or reaching out to Paul before publishing something like this, does that annoy you? Or are you just sort of so used to this by now that it's just
it's annoying. It's annoying. And I try to like apply that in my head to not just sports, but everything. Like that's how I'm starting to view everything in this manner. Like, oh, everything is about clicks. Everything's about a clickbait. It's more important to get the click than it is to tell the actual story. And we all know that most people only read the headline, and run with the story. So that's happened to me several times with several clients. And I can only imagine what it's doing, in the national news and the global news today, because honestly, my experience is it's all the same. We're all humans. Like, it doesn't matter if you're a UFC fighter or a basketball player, football player, pro boxer. I've met all these people, close proximity, and they're all it's the same. The athletes are the same in every sport. It doesn't, everybody thinks like one might be higher than the other. No, they're all humans, and everybody's acting weird to get, I guess, social media hits, which is fine. I guess that's the way the market's trending. That I came from the ad world, and I remember in the ad, media buying, it used to be billboards, radio, and TV. Now those are now falling by the wayside to social media influencers and so on. Like you just got to roll with it. And I guess that this is how it's going to be.
To kind of change things a little bit, I think, and I've said this publicly a million times, I think Paul does such a great job with his color commentary. I think he's just spot on. I think he makes everybody better. Even some of the commentary.
Someone's going to knock on my door in a second, and my dogs are going to go ballistic. I can see him walking up here. I have no idea who it is.
Well, it's the magic of live to tape here, but we're waiting. Let's see if the dogs react. We'll power through.
I got to tell this guy. Oh wait, he just left. All right, cool.
All right, go. All right, so no dogs. So that's all good.
They're going.
Yeah. So like I said, I think Paul does a tremendous job with the commentary, and he's got a bright future doing this forever and ever. I think his post-fight interviews are better than probably anybody. No disrespect to anybody else, but there's always these questions, right? Like John Anik thinks Paul will fight one more time. And there are others who think Paul will fight one more time, and that the itch is not as prevalent as it once was, but it's still kind of there. And Paul way better than I do. Do you think he will fight again at some point? Do you think if it's the right opportunity, the right name, obviously if it happens in Philadelphia, I think he would jump on one more. I mean, he said that in the past, but what do you think? Is there any chance under the right circumstances he would do it again?
Paul's a fighter. He's always going to have that itch in him to fight. He still hits pads regularly. So I don't think that's ever going to go away. Does Paul need to fight? No. Paul's making a great living doing what he's doing right now, and he's got a beautiful family. So he doesn't need to fight. If the stars completely aligned and something perfect came up, would he? I'm sure he would. Do I think he will? Do I think those stars will align? Probably not. I would not. I'm not pushing Paul to fight. I think he had a great career. The only thing that I do wish for Paul is that he got the proper last fight that he should have, so he could have gone out on his own terms and put the gloves down and done all that, because I think he deserves that. I love Paul. Like, just I'm going to be friends with him for the rest of my life. I know this, that, I don't know. Did that answer your question? I'm rambling a bit because I'm trying not to focus on my dog, which I'm about to choke. Rocky, come here. Stop it.
Well, there you go. Yeah. Well, last thing before I let you go, for the dogs start to go ballistic. One of your clients has a big fight coming up at the end of April in Kansas City. Jamahal Hill getting ready to fight Khalil Rountree, main event in Kansas City. And it's been sort of an interesting year and change for Jamahal Hill. It seems like people sort of turned on him after the Alex Pereira fight, some of the things he said. And then it seems like even in a loss to Yuri Prochazka, just the way he kind of handled himself in defeat there, I think people have kind of just understood like, hey, this is a sport, and you can always sort of change the view and perspective on how people view him. And yes, he's going to have haters at the end of the day, but at least in my eyes, I thought Jamal's Q rating went up quite a bit, not just with the Yuri fight, because it was awesome, but the way he handled himself in defeat as well. And now he gets a big fight with Khalil Rountree. Where's his headspace at right now in terms of coming off the back-to-back stoppage losses and where he's at in his career at this point?
Well, it's funny you bring up Jamahal, because he was one of the ones I was talking about when I was referencing with Colby. Not that Jamahal plays the heel to the extent that Colby does, but if to know the real Jamahal is you guys see you guys see a certain him on social media, and that's he's got Jamahal comes from, because Jamahal comes from where he comes from, he's got a chip on his shoulder, and some things kind of rattle him and irritate him, when they shouldn't. And he's adjusting to all of that, but he's not that guy that he projects. I think that the people should remember how he was when he won the belt the first time. That's the Jamahal I want people to remember. The one that told the kids on the beach, yeah, I'll come back and bring you a shirt. And before we hopped on the shuttle to go to the airport, he was like, oh, shoot, I forgot. And he took off, opened his back up and took some shirts and ran out and gave shirts to the kids. And that's basically the guy that he really is. I hope the fans will start to see that, because that's what I want. I mean, I'm sorry I got sidetracked again. My phone was beeping.
Oh, it's okay. Well, that's a big fight, and obviously a lot of big fights happening on the Sucker Punch Entertainment side of things. And again, kind of a silly reason to have you here at the end of the day, but it is important to get both sides of the story. And I appreciate you hopping on and giving your perspective on the Colby Covington, Paul Felder Air Force Base, where they're handcuffs to a toilet, where they're not handcuffs to a toilet, there's not handcuffs to a toilet. But I'm glad we got to get your side of the story as well, Brian. I appreciate you hopping on and doing that.
I appreciate you putting it out there. I know you'll get it out there, and I won't have to talk about this ever again.